Hey, it's Rustin with Metalholic. How are you doing, man?
All right. I'm good, man. How are you?
I'm absolutely wonderful. It's the end of a long week for us who have to work the daily grind. Your daily grind's a little different, obviously.
Well, no, today's actually one of those grindy days because we go on at 8 o'clock and there's a 9 o'clock curfew.
Oh, wow. Geez, well.
Yeah, man. So much for rock and roll, right?
Absolutely. So, well, tell us, so much has been going on, yet not going on with Spineshank. So first off, the new album, Anger, Denial, Acceptance, I want to talk about that, but what tour are you out on right now? Tell everybody what's going on and bring us up to date with Spineshank.
We're out headlining right now with a band called Nine Electric from LA and another band from LA called Marone. Just, doing about, 40-something shows across the U.S., hitting most areas of the U.S. other than the Northwest. And that's just basically been it. The record came out and we just kind of hit the road and figured we'd reacquaint ourselves with our fans and play some of the new songs for them and, see what they think of it. And so far the reception's been pretty awesome, man.
Nice. So, and now for those of us who are in the Pacific Northwest, when will you be getting out this way?
We'll be actually touring for the next year or so. So we'll cover the United States a few times.
Okay, so
before we're done with this album cycle.
We'll all
when exactly I can't tell you, but we will. That I can guarantee you.
Well, it's been a long time, 9 years if memory serves, between Spineshank albums. What's the mood like now when you guys brought it all back together, the original lineup and everything, to record the new album? What were you looking at going into it in terms of your sound? Because that's a long time between records and being apart for your sound to sort of evolve, with the changing times with music as well.
Yeah. You know what? I don't know what we're looking at. I'll tell you what we weren't looking at. What we didn't want to do. There was certain things that we definitely knew we didn't want to do, and one of those things was to live off of our past achievements, sort of. You know what I mean? We didn't really want to rely on our history to kind of just milk it. Basically, that's not something we're interested in, and it was something that we all talked about, and the idea was that if we don't think we can top what we've done before and make the best Spineshank album, the most definitive Spineshank album, is that we weren't really interested in doing it in the first place. So, having said that, it kind of took a minute to just kind of get together and start playing and see where we were at musically and what kind of what kind of musical output we're having. And once we realized that, we haven't really peaked, that we can do better than anything we've ever done, that's when, it was like full steam ahead, like, let's just go and do this, man. Let's make the most kick-ass record of this band's career, and, hopefully people will take notice.
Absolutely, and the new record, it's, in listening to it, it's got a lot, a lot more heaviness, if you will, without giving up the traditional Spineshank vibe that we all love. It's like you guys have just added an extra something to it. I don't know if it's extra something. Whatever it is not conscious. It's not like we sat there and had a board meeting or anything like that and said, hey, we need to write songs like this. In retrospect, looking back on it, it's definitely if there's one word to describe the album, it would be dark. It's the darkest album we've ever done. It's very, it's not very upbeat. It's either like super pissed off and fast or very just sad and dark. So, I guess it had a lot to do with the state of mind of the band while writing and recording the album, and it just kind of came out that way, And as far as us sounding like us, there's a certain way that we play, that we write, that we record, that we don't know any other way of doing things. Right.
It just comes. The way I play is the way I play. It comes out a certain way.
I'd say, the signature.
It's hard to lose the Spineshank sound,
Yeah, the signature is there, is what I'm saying, but it just seemed like it was, as you said, a darker album, but definitely had more weight to it, if you will. So.
Yeah.
the theme of the album, if you will, anger, denial, acceptance. We all know that's part of grieving and whatnot. And there's a lot of interesting songs on here, lyrical complexities. Did you guys have sort of this theme in mind when you went into it, or is that just sort of how it played out?
It's kind of funny to ask that, man. We had the title of the album. It's the first time ever in our careers where we had a title before having, like, written any song. And it was like, okay, Anger, Denial, Acceptance was a killer title, like we kind of knew where we wanted to go with it. But then it was a case of life imitating art. So basically everything we wanted to talk about, to speak about, like where you could conceptually go with this whole Anger, Denial, Acceptance thing, just started happening to us, to members of the band. And the record lyrically, like as far as the theme of it goes or the story that it tells loosely in there, it's very, seated in loss and death and just things ending, and how to deal with it, the different aspects of how you would deal with such traumatic experiences. Some get angry, some get sad, some get depressed, some get, like there's just different emotions that will run through you. And you have to kind of run through all that, and then at the end of somewhere there, hopefully you will come to accept whatever's happening. And because if you don't accept it, you can't move on. You can't go to where you need to be. So it's if you look at it in that way, it's the most honest record we've ever put out. Like we really kind of exposed ourselves in ways that we hadn't before.
You guys had a lot of downtime, obviously, between albums, brought in a different singer for a little while, but obviously that didn't quite go where you wanted it to go because literally there was not an album recorded with your new vocalist. What were you doing during...
We didn't have a new vocalist. It's kind of... I think it was a bit overblown. It was just a project that me and Tommy were working on, completely different project other than Spineshank.
Gotcha.
Spineshank was never meant to be anyone other than the four of us.
Right.
And, for better or for worse, that's what Spineshank is. So we wouldn't really, I don't think it would do justice to anyone, ourselves or our fans or anyone that is into the band or anything, to kind of have a new lineup in this band, with one member missing,
Right.
It wouldn't be Spineshank without all four of us.
Right, but obviously you've been doing something for the last, 8 years or so. What have you been doing to occupy your time with, Spineshank sort of, on the shelf for a while?
Well, the last about 4 years, since 2000, yeah, exactly 4 years, which is when we started writing this record, have been pretty occupied with this band. I've done a few things here and there. Outside of the band, I make records. I produce records for other bands, and,
right.
That's kind of another passion of mine, but Spineshank basically occupies most of my time, and everything else takes a back seat to that.
What are you into outside of music and stuff when you're not doing the producing, you're not doing Spineshank? What do you do to sort of let your hair down, so to speak?
Oh, man, one of the things I do is I play poker.
Nice. That's become a very big thing. How good are you?
I was sort of semi-pro for a little bit, playing lots of tournaments, just kind of grinding out in the tournament circuit. It was just fun, it's something that when you sit down at a table with a bunch of other yahoos and play poker, you have to forget about everything else that's going on in your life and focus on your game and your cards and what you're doing and, and just calculating odds and whatever not. So it just kind of, in a weird way, it's almost like a release, and it's a relief to get away from, music or whatever it is that I'm doing, to kind of just come in and just sit there and hibernate for a minute and just worry about nothing but my game. So that's probably one of my passions right there, outside of music.
So what's the biggest pot you've won so far?
Biggest pot I've won so far. I mean, I've made a few final tables in tournaments, not like big World Series tournaments or anything like that, but, like local LA tournaments, where we usually chop the pot when it comes to that, when you're left with like 7, 8 people in the final table, you chop pots. It's kind of easier that way rather than going heads up and seeing what will happen. Because at that point, it kind of turns into a gamble. Other than that, I've won a few like $3,000-$4,000 pots, playing cash games and stuff like that. I don't play like super high stakes or anything like that. It's just, the game is a game.
Excellent. So, last question then before we get out of here, just for fun. What was the very first guitar you ever owned?
The first guitar I ever owned was this piece of shit acoustic, 7-string, that kind of had action probably about 1.5 inches from the fretboard. It was very, very, very hard to play. I don't even know how I learned to play on that thing. And after that, I saved up a bit of money and got a summer job and all that stuff, and I actually went and bought a Les Paul because, all my heroes played Les Pauls. So I recorded our first record, actually, with that guitar, and then unfortunately, sometime on the Street and Diesel tour, that thing got stolen.
Oh.
And I guess I will never have the pleasure of owning my first real guitar.
That's just tragic. So if you could sit down
it kind of sucks.
If you could sit down with your Les Paul and one of your heroes and just jam for a bit, who would it be?
Hands down, Randy Rhoads, man.
Oh my God! The only time anybody in the business has ever died that made me cry. Dio came close, but he was an old man. But Randy, that was just a true tragedy.
Yeah, that was a tragedy. I mean, Dimebag dying was a huge tragedy, because I just happened to have met him a few times. I've actually met Dimebag both as a fan and as sort of, I guess you would say, a peer. He came out to one of our shows in Dallas years ago, and, I mean, he was just a sweetheart of a human being, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I wish I could say I met Randy at one point, but, the reason I do what I do is because of Randy Rhoads.
Mike Sarkisyan of Spineshank, thanks so much for taking the time to talk with us. I know you got to go get ready, got an early stage time tonight, but the new album, Anger, Denial, Acceptance, came out this week. Awesome record. Get out there, buy it, don't illegally download it. Obviously, I'm assuming you're selling it at the shows?
Yes, we are, yeah.
Excellent. Anything that you'd like to leave the fans with before we get out of here?
Just, thanks to everybody for waiting so long and, making it worth it. Without our fans, we're really nothing. And, I hope everybody gets the album and likes it and connects to it because we definitely put it out in a token of honesty, basically. We just expose ourselves to it. And I hope it helps people sometimes to put things into perspective as far as, how shitty life could be.
Awesome, Mike. Again, thanks so much. Have a great show tonight, and we look forward to when you get here to the Pacific Northwest so we can see you in person.
All right. Thank you, man. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Take care, brother.